Last weekend at church, we talked about choosing your story. So what story are you telling yourself, about life, about where life is going, where history is going? A man named Russell Bishop writes, have you ever imagined yourself about to embark on a new experience and you started to tell yourself all the things that might go wrong? Like, for example, you're up on a high dive platform and you scare yourself into backing down the ladder because you kept telling yourself a story about the embarrassing and painful belly flop that is probably going to happen if you jump off that high dive. Or maybe you imagine a conversation with your boss or with a friend or with a family member, and you imagine how badly that might go. And so you story tell yourself out of ever having that conversation. Well, Russell says, as my mentor used to say to me, Russell, if you're going to indulge in a fantasy, why would you choose to lose in it? After all, it's your fantasy. That is very true. So take some time this week and simply notice the stories you are telling yourself. Stories about yourself. Stories about your family or your friends, stories about your job, your coworkers, or stories about life in general. And ask yourself this question: how do those stories differ from the truth of Scripture about the way God is working in your life? If you have to tell yourself stories about yourself, and everybody does tell themselves stories about how their life is going to go, consider this. Are those useful stories? Do they help you move forward? Do they change you for the better? Are they the truth? If not, leave those stories behind and move on to stories that are uplifting and useful and actually true. You know, Jesus warned us, watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. Okay, great, but how am I supposed to recognize a false prophet? Well, he tells us, by their fruit, you will recognize them. Have you ever thought about this? Often, we are our own false teacher. We speak untrue stories to ourselves about our lives, about our value, that do not align with the Bible. Jesus would say, look at the fruit of the stories that you are telling yourself. Look at the fruit they are producing. If they're producing fear and anger and anxiety, all kinds of bad fruit in your life, those are false teachings. You are the false prophet that Jesus is warning you against in that verse, and you need to get rid of those false narratives. If this isn't making sense to you, then I want you to go back and listen to the sermon that we gave this last weekend. You can see it at tlc.org. But the point is, this year, choose to tell yourself true stories that align with God's story about you. Have a great day.